Okay. I know the light's not great, but I don't want to stand up and close the curtain, so this is the best we're going to get. He swept a table worth of glassware to the floor. Oh, that's right. He just summoned that knowledge demon. And then he unintentionally freed it, and he is now in trouble. So, in case you didn't remember where we left off, that's where this is chapter 4, and here we go. He swept a table's worth of glassware to the floor behind him and snapped his fingers, not even looking back. He could feel the blast of heat as the assorted liquids caught fire. It bought him a second or two that he needed to scrabble at the lock before he could throw the door open. Then he ran like his life depended on it, because it probably did. How much blood was in a human body? How much knowledge would it buy if it all ended up splashed across the walls? He wondered if Estogath would whisper answers in his ears as he died. It probably would, the asshole. Only they would be to questions like, what is the secret ingredient in the pie from the baker 2 towns over? And what is the fastest land speed ever achieved by a chicken? His feet nearly skidded out from under him as he rounded the corner. He could hear the measured clacking of the demon's claws behind him. There wasn't anywhere he could run, not really. The castle wasn't all that big. That was what happened when you cheaped out on castles. You got murdered by a demon you'd summoned yourself that didn't even have the courtesy to wink at you. Up ahead, the goblin guard captain, what was his name? Did he even know his name? Stood at attention outside the princess's cell. Oh, great teeth. The princess. A great tear. He was almost going to call on some god. Great teeth, he changed it to. The princess. What would Estogath do to her? Open the cell, hurry! The goblin boggled at him. He was nearly on top of the goblin, and the demon couldn't be far behind. Now! The captain caught sight of what followed him, and jumped and began fumbling with the keys. Gav thought quickly. He sent another little fireball down the hallway, even smaller than the last one, and then fumbled for the next spell he could think of. Snail slime. It called for a drop of snail slime. He didn't have snail slime. Would spit do? Estogath nimbly dodged the fireball as it came around the corner, leaving a scorch mark on the wall behind it. It grinned its contempt. Then it slid on the patch of lubricant that Gav had conjured and crashed into a sconce. The goblin had managed to bungle the door open, and the princess stood in the doorway, blinking into the brighter light. Run, you idiot! Gav shouted, shoving the goblin along in front of him. Run! The princess's mouth fell open. No time for surprise! Run! Gav yelled, and yanked her out of the doorway, pushing her along too. What are we running from? Alicia asked, although she did mercifully follow instructions. She glanced over her shoulder. Oh, dear gods, what is that? Knowledge demon, Gav managed between gasps. A stitch burned down his side. An exercise program. If he survived this, he would start running every morning. If only he survived this. Keep running, more running, then thinking, less asking. Ahead, a door swung open. Sirocco peered around the edge. Demon coming through, was all Gav could gasp out. He would have loved some help, but he couldn't think of anything Sirocco could do besides provide a nice snack. Maybe there was enough grease in what remained of his hair to give Estogath a heart attack. It would have been a lovely surprise if Sirocco had somehow heroically stepped forth. The universe had decided that there had been enough surprises for one evening. Sirocco made a meep sound and slammed the door. As Gav pounded past, he could hear furniture being pushed against the barricade. Good to know Sirocco could be relied upon to stay true to type. He frantically tried to think of some way out of this. He couldn't keep running forever. He had no idea how to send the demon back, or rather, he had no idea if his method would work now that the demon was out of the circle, especially since Estogath had removed the memories that should have kept him safe. Stupid. How could he have been so stupid? Less remonstrating, more running. Another glance revealed the demon, far behind but not far enough, pacing without any indication of tiring. The flames hadn't damaged it in the slightest, but that wasn't very surprising. Next time, he'd rig the ceiling with water buckets. Next time, he'd steal a holy object to keep on hand. Next time, he wouldn't bloody summon a demon in the first place. Another staircase was coming up, one flight down towards the kitchen and one up to the battlements. The goblin captain in front of him waddled amazingly fast, his rotund little body wobbling back and forth, but his breathing less labored than Gav's. As they crossed by the stairs, he pushed the little fellow down them, yelling, "Where are the others?" The goblin bounced a few steps before regaining his feet and scrambling down. Gav didn't have time to see more than that before he had passed by. The princess shot him a funny look. Oh, he supposed he could have made the guard captain fight the demon. That might have slowed it down a little at least. He had no idea how much blood was in a goblin body. It hadn't even occurred to him, which was probably weird. Another thing to worry about if he survived this. There's nothing above or below them that would help much. The entire garrison of guards, if they somehow got organized fast enough, would only slow the thing down. And then he would have to spend the next week scrubbing viscera off the ceiling, and he had no idea how much blood did or didn't set into granite. And he had no idea how much blood. Okay. He had to stop this himself somehow, which meant going back to the workshop, assuming he still had a workshop. Fortunately, the castle was organized like a misshapen rectangle around his tiny courtyard, and they had run nearly all the way around. "Into the workshop," he gasped out. His steps had already slowed. The princess ducked in, surprisingly obedient. He should have sent her on, he realized. Was he always this terrible in a crisis? He slammed the door behind them and threw the bolts and cast the first spell that popped into his head. Purple tentacles sprouted down from the ceiling, waving about menacingly before throwing themselves to brace against the door. Dramatic. Probably not particularly effective, but anything had to be better than nothing. He dragged over the big carved chair and pushed it up against the door, too, for good measure. One of the tentacles stroked a naked lady carving appreciatively. Dismissal spell, he muttered to himself, frantically sorting through the piles of paper that had unsorted themselves in the chaos. The fire hadn't burned much, it looked like, although at least one of the circles had melted a bit and spread across the floor. Once again, tiny fires dotted the workshop. Perhaps he should just consider them a decorative accent and get used to them. Something pounded against the door. The princess dove into the papers next to him for all the good it would do her. It wasn't like she would be able to read much or understand any of it, but he supposed it would be a mercy to let her feel useful in her last unexsanguinated moments on earth. The door shuddered. "What about this?" She waved something. Gav glanced at it. "That's a dismissal spell specifically keyed to Ginny by the renowned sorceress Sortana. It's 250 years old, almost certainly one of a kind, basically priceless and absolutely completely useless in this situation. Get out of my way before you get us both killed." A hissing sound came from the doorway. The tentacles reeled back, screeching like nails across a chalkboard that had somehow been buried a quarter of an inch under his skin. "I'm the one that's going to get us killed," the princess said. "I'm not the one who summoned a knowledge demon in the first place." On the one hand, it was hardly the tone a hostage should take with her fearsome captor, but she did back out of the way, so Gav forgave her for the moment. "I need to know something," he protested. "I needed to know something," he protested. 2-foot-long talons. Oh, we better not do that. That's noisy. It's hot, though. 2-foot-long talons. It's 2 foot long. No, 2 feet long. Not two of them. Drove through the door. With a groan of wood, the owner pulled them free again, leaving gaping holes that Gav did not care to peer through. "Do you know it now?" She tossed the rejected papers aside and grabbed for another handful. "Shut up!" Absolutely the most convincing argument he could have made here, but he was a little preoccupied. They could argue later, either here or as neighbors in hell. The top door of the door shattered, raining splinters down on the two humans inside. Gav ducked a bit more than he had meant to, blinking away wood dust. Estogath did not need to push away the chair. Those off-angle hips proved perfect for climbing through holes in doors at chest height. "Stay behind me," Gav told the princess, backing away without taking his eyes off the creature. He raised his arms and then brought them down again, barking harsh syllables. Estogath paused, and then it laughed. It leaned forward and reached the endless claws for Gav's neck. Gav leaned back, the table up against his side, nowhere left to go. "Wait!" cried Alicia. Estogath paused, turning its smiling face to the princess. Gav risked a look over his shoulder. She held a manuscript in a trembling hand. "I have a spell here by Sortana. Jinni dismissal. Only copy in the world," Alicia said. Her voice trembled a little. Gav was impressed, but jealous. "Do you know it?" Estogath's head craned forward. "Know of it, yes. Know it? No. You wish to trade your measly lives for this spell?" "No," said Alicia, "because I'm pretty sure you'll just kill us afterwards. No, I'm trading you going back to wherever you came from, or I'll burn it." "What?" Estogath and Gav said together. The princess held it over one of the little fires. The papers rattled. "You're a knowledge demon. You'll live forever. Eventually you'll get your hands on it, unless I burn it right here and now and remove the knowledge from the universe. And then you'll never ever know." Estogath looked at Alicia, measuring. Gav kept his body between them. He might only be able to slow the demon down, but he only had to slow it down enough to make the risk too great. "Clever," the demon said finally. "Very clever. Clever enough I'll make you an offer. A secret of his, if you give him to me." "Then it probably won't do me much good," she said bravely, "and I don't trust your bargains." "Even more clever." Estogath stepped sideways and then again until it stood in the middle of the circle. "Clever enough to cut yourself, and oh, I'll cheer when you do. We shall meet again, little bluffer." "But not today," said the princess. "Not today," agreed the demon. And then the space twisted in on itself, and Gav's ears popped as the air rushed in to fill the gap that had been occupied by teeth and claws only a moment before. Alicia sat down very abruptly on the floor. Yet another good idea. Gav's knees voted in favor without consulting the upper body that had been making such terrible choices up to this point. The next thing he knew, he too was sitting on the floor. For a minute or two they just sat. The little fires crackled peacefully around the room. Their flickering light was very flattering on the princess's shining hair, and the sound was kind of soothing. Yes, he should make them a design element, he mused. They seemed to keep happening anyway. He could give them little holders, maybe something to burn that didn't smell quite so bad. Wait, no, those already existed, and they were called candles. "Does this happen a lot around here?" she finally asked. Gav didn't actually know himself. He hoped not. He settled for a shrug. That really could have gone a lot better. On the other hand, he knew some important things now. Estogath had his memories. He most certainly did not remember how to safely summon things. His princess was quite a bit smarter than he was. "Why didn't you use me and the goblin as cannon fodder?" Alicia blurted. "Goblins aren't actually an infinite resource," Gav pointed out. "Humans kind of are," she said. "Well, true. Both humans and goblins make more eventually if you give them enough time," he said, Gav. "But people tend to underestimate how long it takes to train new staff." She did not look convinced. His shoulders sagged. "I tend to underestimate how long it takes to train new staff. I'm trying something new." Something new. It wasn't really a question so much as a general statement of doubt. He wasn't really sure himself. If his memories were gone, then he wasn't going to get them back. What did he owe his old self? He didn't even like him. So maybe he needed to focus less on trying to figure out what Gavarax would have done, and more on what Gav wanted to do. Something more, I don't know, practical, maybe a little less evil, he offered. Maybe it was too much. You kidnapped me and locked me in a dungeon. Well, it's not so much a dungeon, it's just a really dark room. You incinerated your last valet. Well, there is that, but I haven't incinerated Garabeetle yet. You said he just started. Well, you kidnapped me. You already said that one, Gav protested. Yes, and this isn't a scholarly debate. Just because it's been raised before doesn't mean it went away and stopped bothering me. I just object to the idea simply because I've performed, shall we say, certain actions in the past that everything I touch will be automatically evil. It wasn't very far in the past. It wasn't, actually, not to her, even if it was a different life entirely to him. Let us say, he said carefully, that keeping you here would not have been my first choice. What, like someone made you kidnap me in the middle of the night? She looked like she was about to roll her eyes and then stopped. Wait, did someone else make you kidnap me? Since you're here, he interrupted, consider it an opportunity. Perhaps your loveliness, she sneered bitterly. He regretted the crack about the ring. Your good sense, your common sense can inspire me to another way of life, to goodness. You could start with letting me go. Something smaller. How about not being a complete asshole to everyone you meet? She said acidly. She meant it sarcastically, but there was something to be said for trying to be more generous, kind. His gut reaction was to think anyone who tried to be nice was either plotting something or just being a hypocrite. But what would it hurt to try to be a little more good? Gavarax had done his level best to be evil, and look what it had gotten him. The princess tried to hide a yawn. Gav had no idea what time it was. Late. Dark wizards should keep midnight hours, but he was exhausted, and his study was wrecked. Again. He rubbed his forehead wearily and then stood up. This time, at least, the fire-snuffing spell had come to mind readily. He waved a hand, and the little fires extinguished themselves, along with the ever-burning candles. Fortunately, light from the hall still filtered in through the gap in the door. He could pretend he'd meant to do that. Maybe the princess would even believe it. For a moment they sat, not looking at each other, eyes adjusting. Gav glanced at her quickly and then back to the wall before she could see. He wondered what she was thinking. That he was an idiot, most likely. He scrambled to his feet and turned up to offer her a hand up. She had already stood before he could complete the gesture. Hoping she hadn't noticed, he shoved his hand back into the pocket of his robe. Instead, he guided her back to her cell, pausing at her door to think of something kind to say. She pulled it shut behind her before he could get a word out. He bit his lip and then called for a guard. An identifiable helmet stuck cautiously up out of the stairwell. A spear trembled behind it. Everything is safe, he said. Please guard the princess. He turned to stumble off to bed and then paused. Oh, and let the folks in the kitchen know they can stop cowering. And that's a break. Let's see how long we read. Oh, that's plenty good enough.